All right. Welcome to the Rise Up podcast. I am your host, Jonah Mitchell. And on this show, I help you rise up to your potential by simplifying everything that goes into the health and fitness journey that may make it a lot harder than it needs to be. And a lot of that goes on between what's going on between our ears. And I've had to learn that from my own experience. So if you're new here, hello, welcome. If you're one of my many fans, the many fans, I know. It's good to have you back. And I love this because not only are you going to hear me rant today, but you're going to hear someone who I have grown to admire really quickly. We've been in the same circle for a long time and never quite had the opportunity to ever have a conversation. And we just had like one of our first conversations like a couple weeks ago. And we were talking so much, we're like, we just gotta hop on the podcast. So Erin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I actually
So,
listened to your last episode during my workout this morning, so
oh really?
I feel I'm nice and pumped up. Yeah,
Oh, which one was that?
you got me through
Uh,
leg day. Like my main takeaway about it was uh doing something small is better than nothing at all.
yeah,
That
yeah.
was like I was like I'm taking that.
Hell yeah.
I
That's
I will
I swear
attribute you.
yes, please do use it. You don't need to quote me. But one of these days I'm gonna have a bunch of shirts. And that's gonna be my favorite. That's gonna be my favorite one. Is something small is better than nothing at all. Because that's honestly what's gotten me through a lot of my own shit. But we'll get into that later. But like I was saying, Erin and I have been just like we've been in the same rooms together. We've been just never had the chance to sit down. So we had a bit of a cool conversation. But and I understand that you're a fucking awesome person, but what makes you awesome? Who the hell is Erin? And why should everyone listen to what you have to say?
What makes me awesome? I'm gonna ask my mom. Um, she'll tell you. Um, well, I'm a personal trainer and a nutrition coach. I started out off actually as a health coach, as a primal health coach in the ancestral health world. Um, and I came to that through just like a really roundabout way, just because it's kind of like I needed it. And I think that's a lot of how people like us get started is because we had a need that we fulfilled and then we became passionate about it and we wanted to help other people. And so for me, it really came down to I was a caregiver and I got to the point where I really needed to start taking care of myself. Not, one, because I deserve to be taken care of. Deserve to take care of myself, but two, I couldn't be the caregiver that I needed to be with my body breaking down. So um, that's probably the most like noteworthy thing about me is that my late husband Sam was hit by a roadside bomb in Iraq in 2007, and he sustained a very severe traumatic brain injury. At the time of his injury, he was I think it was like the 14th most severely injured troop um, in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Who survived, and it was like 2 years or so of kind of like living in hospitals, and then about almost 2 years after his initial injury we ended up kind of in our hometown area at a rehab home because he still needed 24-hour nursing care, and for the rest of his life he needed 24-hour nursing care. And so maybe 3 or 4 months after we had been kind of back in our home area, I was back. I had an apartment here, and I threw out my back yet again, and I was only like 25, I think. Yeah, I would have been 25. And when I was 17, I had sprained my back as a server. Fell carrying a tray and sprained my back in two places. And so usually like 2 to 4 times a year, I would kind of throw it out. And it happened again. I was doing some stuff with his wheelchair and physically like maneuvering him, and I threw my back out again. And it was like that real like reality of it wasn't just like if you don't take care of yourself years in the future you're going to be sick and unable. It's like, no, I'm 25 freaking years old and I'm like on my back on muscle relaxers and ice packs, and I physically can't take care of him right now because of my physical condition. And so I decided I need to start taking care of myself again and get back to the gym. And so after over 2 years of pretty much 7 days a week, other than one time I got the flu, was with Sam. I told the family, I'm going to take Saturdays off. So for myself, so if you don't want him to be alone on Saturdays, that'd be a great time for you to go see him. But and they all totally understood, of course. And basically for myself, my only obligation on Saturdays was I needed to go to the gym. And it just started with one day a week. And that quickly turned into more than that. And, I ended up becoming an endurance athlete and competing in triathlons, and I ran 3 marathons and a whole bunch of half marathons and, 5Ks, 10Ks, whatever, cycling events, stuff like that. But that's what started it, was that just I physically had to take care of myself. And so it started with just a commitment to one day a week. And that turned into now, I'm a trainer. I've been a coach for, it'll be 5 years like this summer since I got my first coaching cert, which is hard to believe it's been that long. But I've really been into coaching like 100% full time, really actually since Sam died. So spring of 2020 was when I really kind of had to go jump into the deep end of coaching, because I went from being able to kind of do it as like a side hustle because it was something I enjoyed and something that I was able to do just on the side, like as little or as much as I wanted to, because I had a steady income coming in, to all of a sudden 86% of my income went away when I lost Sam. And so then all right, I just kind of barely started this coaching business. Now it's really time to jump into the deep end and like pay my mortgage.
Oh wow. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
And really just to kind of highlight some of the pieces where you went through a very, very tough time
Yeah.
in your life, right? Taking care of Sam, and you said the 14th most injured
Yeah.
Marine or
Troop, like
troop,
all
sorry,
American
all of them
troops. Yeah.
troop. So that's insane.
Mm.
And to completely go take care of him the way you did, and finally, not in a selfish way, but realize that there was a part of you that was missing out. There was and that part of that, you just weren't that. What was it? The you pulled your back out, or you threw your back out,
Yeah.
right? And the things that you used to be able to do were beginning to deteriorate, and you were able to connect those dots of like, I'm giving so much to Sam, which was validated, right? Which was validated. Is that a word? Which was valid. But there was still that part of you that after a while that you had to make a choice for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you took that choice, and it helped you in more ways than just going to the gym, right? And I think that's
Yeah.
something I always want to help highlight to people. Like, the fitness side is cool, like the results is cool, but it's everything else that comes with it that's what keeps you going. And I think that's something that that's why I wanted to highlight it, because it started with one decision of going to the
Yeah.
gym once a week.
Yeah.
That's it, right? And it
Yeah.
spiraled to where you are now.
And it really became the process, like the journey, not the destination.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was about like I need some time for myself to take care, like self-care. That was initially what it was. And I needed to get a stronger core. I needed my body to be physically stronger in order to continue taking care of him. But it really became exercise, and kind of the friend group also that I established through that exercise was my therapy. And it became much more than once a week, and it was huge for me. It became my thing. It was the thing that I had outside of him. And a really big thing that I think that is really important for anybody who can get into fitness and to really enjoy the process and not just be so outcome based, is what you put into it is what you get out of it. And it when like in general, like regardless of your circumstance, there are lots of things in our lives that are out of our control. And my husband getting blown up and the results of that was something very much outside of my control. But this was something that I could have some semblance of control over. Just like I like meticulously groomed him. I did his haircuts. We rocked a beard for a couple of years. Like I didn't want like the nursing assistants. I didn't want anybody else like shaving him or anything like that. Like I took pride in doing that stuff, and that was part of the way that I like loved on him. But I recognize a big part of that was it was something I could control. Just like my nutrition and fitness is something within my otherwise chaotic life that I could control.
Hmm.
For
Yeah,
the
and that's
for better or worse,
yeah, no,
really.
seriously. And I think that in and of its there's so much to extrapolate from this. Is that a word? I think that's a word. I am having
Extrapolate,
a
yeah.
hard time. Yeah, extrapolate's a word. Okay, good. Um, this is why it's fun to have someone else here to kind of bounce ideas off of, because I feel like I get away with a lot of stupid shit. Um, anyway, that sense, I think understanding what we control is super important, and I feel like it gets a little bastardized in mainstream media when they say control what you can control, because I feel like it's just a blanket statement when people don't actually know what that means until they're in it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people get stuck in the everything is happening to me mentality, right? Your
Yeah.
husband getting injured, right? Like zero control over that, but it's very easy to take that very personally, right?
Yeah.
Why why does this have to happen to me? And you know, I don't want to throw anything out there. Could have been in that place for yourself, but you know, those things, like, that's a very serious case. But there's many other things that can be going on in other people in your life as well, that continue to remind you of everything that you don't control, right? And it removes that ability to actually remind yourself that you have the ability to make changes, right? You can
Hmm.
do something simple, but because you're being bombarded with everything that is out of your control and everything that you lack, the simple direction of just one thing seems seems just unrealistic and unobtainable to actually get to where you want to go. So we just accept that we can't control these things, right? But then we still unknowingly, right, you said, still find ways to control things in very small ways. They may not be always the best intentions, right? They may not always be the best, but there's still some aspects that we always inherently are trying to find control, right? And when we go through these challenges, not only in a health and fitness, but just in our life and day to day, right? It doesn't serve anybody to do things that will give us control that actually make the problem worse. But we don't realize it, right? So really, what I'm trying to get at is what really helped you start to identify your ability to find ways to control what you can control outside of the gym. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think a lot of this comes back to an interaction I had at a conference. So maybe 9 months or so after he got hurt, I was afforded the opportunity by the Wounded Warrior Project to go to the Caregivers Conference, the Brain Injury Association of America Caregivers Conference, and they were going to pay for my like the conference fee. It was being held at the Westin, like the Dallas Fort Worth Westin, so paid for 3 nights or whatever it was, plus my airfare. Like the only thing I had to buy when I was there was my food, and it was scary in a couple different ways. Just like saying yes to it was scary because one, I was going to be leaving Sam for like 3 or 4 days, and so that part was scary. And then secondly, I wasn't sure that I was ready to have answers to things yet. Um, because I didn't want to know, like, I didn't want to ask questions because I didn't necessarily want to know the answers because he was so severely injured. His brain injury was so severe that the answers weren't good answers. And I just wanted to like keep the hope alive. And so I didn't know how much I wanted to learn. Turned out it was a really good thing. It was an amazing conference, but and I learned a lot of really important things that I would be able to take and use for myself and for him and for others in the future. But what ended up happening is, so this was like a civilian event, but I ended up meeting another military wife there. We were like at the same age, like early to mid 20s, and her husband had been severely injured as well, brain injury. And she was so just angry and bitter. And it was like, it was an exhausting conversation with her. And she just, it was everything that came out of her mouth was negative. Whether it was about, I think her husband was in the army. So it was, like, the army this and the hospital that and the VA this, and just like nothing was positive. And she wanted to go back over there and get her revenge, like over to Iraq, like she's gonna go over Iraq and you know start cracking Iraqi heads because her husband got hurt. I'm like, your husband also enlisted. um but like, it was just so negative, and it just left such a bad taste in my mouth. And I was like, wow, like, her poor husband. Like, I don't remember anything other than the fact that her husband had a brain injury and then he was in the army. All I remember thinking was like, this poor guy, like, this is his wife, and like, this is the attitude he's having to deal with all the time, on top of having a brain injury and whatever in other injuries he has going on. And so that's when it really became apparent to me that like, your attitude is a choice. And actually, I'm gonna look it up because um Viktor Frankl has this quote, and it's everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's way. And if you don't know, Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor. I think he was in Auschwitz, and that experience with that peer of mine was just really revealing to me. And I didn't want to be like her. I didn't want anybody else to feel like I did in that conversation, with regards to me. I wanted to be a source of positivity and light and hope, whether it was for other caregivers, wives, family members, of whoever their person was, in the hospital, and certainly for my husband, for even like the medical staff. Just I got told one time, just within the first couple months of his injury, based on what hospital we were at, one of the nurses, who's a Navy officer, she's like, you make it so easy to be in his room. Like, it was just like a positive experience. So like, staff wanted to be in there taking care of Sam because it was a positive place based on my attitude. And at first, that wasn't anything that I was doing like on purpose.
Mhm.
It's just, I guess, the natural way I reacted to it. But after that experience with that army wife, the angry wife, as I call her, it became much more of a conscious thing.
Yeah.
Like, I do not want to be like that.
Wow. That's have you ever read the book Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey?
Yeah,
Oh
great
my
book.
God. Love that book. I only listen to the audiobook because he narrates it and it's great. It's
Same.
awesome. Yeah.
I
And
bought the
there's
book. I did buy the book. It's a really nice, like, the hardback of it. It's like a really nicely made book.
yeah.
Because after I listened to it, I was like, this is something I'm going to want to refer to again.
Mhm.
I haven't yet, but I will.
Yeah, I've listened to it like 3 times because of how he narrates it.
Yeah.
And I probably should buy the book, but I still have it in my iTunes, and I'm gonna
Mhm.
probably listen to it here very shortly. But I bring that up specifically because there's a quote from that book that's always stuck with me, and the process of finding out who you are usually starts with the process of elimination. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the time, we are not aware of the gifts that we have. We just do them, right? And
Yeah.
people, they comment on them, and that's cool, but we see it as normal. Whereas others who lack it, they pull it out of us, but we don't think of it that way. So you weren't aware of your general positivity until you had the polar opposite standing right in front of you, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's what I don't want. Cool. If I don't want this, I can clearly define what I do actually want from there. Right. And
Yeah.
that's a pretty significant like step in the right direction for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Once you kind of understand what you really dislike about the situation that you're in or the things that you don't want to see, the direction you want to go starts to get a lot clearer. And this is a little bit more personal for my own backstory, but I had a very similar structure where I was raised around alcohol and physical and verbal abuse. And I remember from a young age, I didn't want anything to do with those behaviors. I was like 7 years old and was like, I'm never going to be like that. So I still have a hard time drinking alcohol with my family because it's still a boundary for myself. I don't feel that comfortable doing that because of what I've seen. And I don't want to set the example. I've still had to do a lot of work to get out of those processes, but it allowed me to honestly make a lot of positive decisions that's led me down the path that I live, where I was able to go to college to play football and not end up like a lot of people I did grow up with who, didn't go to school, dropped out, got involved in a lot of not so great scenarios because they didn't have that general idea of where they wanted to go. They were just kind of going with what happened to them, right? And once we start to identify those pieces, your superpowers, the things that you want and value, start to highlight. And like I said before we started, Erin's a goddamn superstar, and everyone needs to know it because you've taken something you've been good at and the struggle that you've been through, and you're turning it for good, right? You don't want people to feel the way you felt when that woman was super. The angry woman was her angry self, right? I don't think I've ever seen you like not like smiling in some way. Now that I think about it, I think there's always like some kind of smile. But still, like all these things are super fascinating, and I want to kind of jump into that aspect of everything that you've learned from that experience with Sam and how you started to rebuild yourself. Where did therapy or your nutrition, your fitness became therapy for yourself after all that, all these lessons that you learned, right? How do you try to connect the dots for the people that you work with when it comes to stuff like this? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I think it's really easy to just as a human, like we're naturally, our brains naturally compare things.
Oh yeah.
And so it's really easy. So like I don't necessarily come out of the gates telling people my story. If it
Mhm.
comes up, it comes up. Sometimes it can get in the way because they're like, oh, what you went through is so bad, and what I'm doing, going through pales in comparison, whatever. And it's like there is no comparison. Just
Mhm.
we all have our struggles, and you're entitled to feel how you feel about whatever your circumstance is. But having been in a really kind of difficult place, and I've been in some dark places, mental health wise, um, you know, including grief and excluded from grief, um, I can relate to a lot of what somebody's going through. Um, and the biggest thing I think I try to do at least is to really ask a lot of questions of the person and try to understand their motivations, what's really going on for them, why is something a challenge, what do they really want on the other side of it. And then given my story and where I've been, like I'm still here. Some really crappy stuff has happened to me.
Mhm.
Became a widow at how old, like 37, 36. And became a caregiver at 23. And that ability to like when you're in the middle of it, it can feel so difficult, and like you don't know what it's going to look like on the other end. But there is another end. Like the time is going to pass. You're going to get there. And I had, Sam had like countless hospitalizations. I couldn't begin to count the amount of hospitalizations he had. Some were scarier and longer than others. And one in particular, I did not do a great job of taking care of myself during that hospitalization. He had an abdominal surgery that resulted in all sorts of complications, and he was in the ICU for a month. And then after he got out, he was still kind of in and out of the hospital for the next like 3 to 4 months. And during that month in the ICU, um, I really just let myself go. In one way, I was with him. I needed to be with him. I was where I needed to be. That was the circumstance. In another, I really wasn't thinking about myself, and the fact that like we're going to get through this. Where do I want to be on the other side of that? And so I ended up, I gained probably 10 pounds or so, lost a lot of fitness, gained like 10 pounds. I was in physical therapy actually for my knee. And it just happened to be that my physical therapist was like 2 miles away from the hospital. So it was actually really convenient. Um, so I was doing physical therapy. That was really the only thing I was doing for myself. I could have been like going for more walks. I was a runner at the time. I could have been going for runs from the hospital. I could have been eating better. There was a lot of things that I could have done a lot better, and I just didn't because I was just so stuck in the moment and in the caught up in the disaster of kind of what was happening. I came out of that because you're gonna come out of it, 10 pounds heavier, really not feeling good about myself physically or the way that I chose, the choices that I made during that month or so. And so, the next kind of significant hospitalization that came up, I was like, all right, I don't want to do that again. Right. So I was like, okay, what can I do differently? I'm still in the hospital. I'm still living in the hospital and, not ideal set of circumstances. But there were choices that I could make that was me taking get better care of myself. And on the other end of it, because there is another end of it, I felt better about the choices that I made. I was in a better physical state and mental state because of it. So, things like kept the resistance band in the hospital room. There's certain exercises that I would do in the hospital with Sam. Oftentimes, doing his physical therapy, his range of motion, all that. He'd be like, it's your turn. And he'd hold the band for me while I did some rows or some back flies or something like that, and then, I would go for walks or runs and, I would do like a bench workout where I'd go for a run and, every time there's a bench, I would use the bench for push-ups and dips and Bulgarian split squats and step ups. And then I'd run to the next bench or whatever. And it could be like 30, just like 30 minutes away from Sam. It didn't have to be like this big sacrifice, but it was me actively doing things. And So I think that's a big thing that perspective that I have that I can help people with. Sorry, I like lost track of what the question was.
You're fine. This is the point of my podcast. This happens all the time.
Just ramble.
Yes.
But I think that's a good piece of perspective that I have and that I use for myself continually. But I can use it with clients too, is that like, this sucks. Like, I'm sorry that you're going through what you're going through. I have a client whose mother-in-law just passed away. Like, she's away from her house right now because her mother-in-law lives, not in the same state. And, she's going to be away from her house for like a week and a half, all told. And it's like, yeah, the situation's not ideal and it sucks. And I'm sorry. And you're in pain. And things aren't perfect. And things aren't ever going to be perfect. Or if they are, they're not going to be perfect for very long. Life is going to keep lifing. There's just no, the only escape for life is death. So how do you want to live it? And even when you're going through really difficult times, you can still make small choices because doing something is better than doing nothing, right?
Mm-hmm. Damn right it is.
Because you are going to get through that trial, that challenge, that difficult season of life. So what do you want, who do you want to be? What do you want to look like? How do you want to feel on the other end of that? The time is going to pass. So if you have a particular goal, obviously we're talking about health and fitness, right? So, if you have weight related, fitness related, health related goals, there are some small things that you can continue to do that align with that person that you want to be on the other side of this challenge. And it's going to make you a better you in the process. If you're doing like even if it's literally just making sure that you're hydrated every day, if that is the one thing that you can do for yourself while you have a loved one in the hospital, while you're dealing with the death of a family member, whatever it is, if you can just, drink whatever your goal water amount is, if you can do that every day, it's one thing you're getting the benefit of being hydrated, right? You're getting the actual benefit of having that hydration. But two, even just having like a very small goal of something that you can achieve. Again, it's that thing that you can control. Here's one thing I have control over. Check. I did it. I can check that box. I can cross it off my to-do list. I did it, and you can feel accomplished because of it.
This is so good. This is so good because like you went down a rabbit hole, but it was a necessary rabbit hole to fully understand that what you were actually doing when we're talking about going through a tough time and understanding what you can control in the situation. You cannot discount anything that you're experiencing. You can't, right? It's a hard fact that the shit that you're going through right now may be really fucking hard, and that's okay, right? There's no comparison whatsoever. When we're going through these times, and like you said, the first severe surgery that Sam had, you went through it, and there was no control. It was lots of chaos, and you learn something very valuable. I don't want to go through that the way I went through it last time.
Yeah.
Right. And that right there, that if I could get one person to believe, or to not to believe, but to understand that, I swear to God, you'll change your entire relationship with anything, any form of consistency when it comes to any goal that you want to accomplish. But primarily, since we're here, physical health, mental health, whatever it is, right? Because when you went through that and it was tough, it was hard, you're like, okay, I don't want to do this again. How can I be prepared for next time so that when this does inevitably happen, because of the scenario that I am in, I cannot control this. I am much more prepared and able to align my actions with what I actually want to accomplish and not just be the victim to the circumstance that I didn't ask for, right? We don't want these things to happen, but they happen to us for a reason. They happen to us to remind us what it's like to feel like ourselves, right? We can't, if we always lived in joy, right? We would probably be pretty bored with life if nothing ever wrong went bad happened to us. But I'm not saying that to discredit any, or not to say yeah, it's good that bad things happen to us, but they happen to us for a reason, and our choices that we get that we make are how we get to actually decide who we want to be. And if we continue to operate and live in the way that or let the things that happen to us affect our choices in ways that do not actually serve us, do not benefit us, do not learn what we can do, even this small thing, that's what really keeps us stuck in this cycle of oh, I'm good, I'm bad, I'm on, I'm off. Life always finds a way. Yeah, it does, and it always will. So if we can learn how to go with the ebbs and flows, just as you have, just as I have, it starts to be much more manageable. And we start to let go of all the, oh, you have to eat chicken, rice, and broccoli, you have to work out this sort of way. It's like, no, go for a 10-minute walk and find a bench and then come back and you're done. Like, don't overcomplicate it. If that's what you can do, embrace that, celebrate that's what you can do, and then let it grow from there. God, I knew this was gonna be a great conversation.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of, and I've thought of this multiple times during this conversation. A lot of what we're talking about is like contrast and like dark and light. Like you need, like there's no light without the dark. And just like you brought up like joy, like there is no joy without pain and sadness. And I'm in California. I'm in Northern California in Sacramento Valley, and it is typically very sunny here. We are usually in a drought, and we've had so much rain, which on the one hand, blessing, we need the rain, but it is depressing as hell. And like, there's a reason I don't live in the Pacific Northwest. and and so normally we take the sun for granted, and it's like we celebrate when we get like a storm that comes in for a couple days, and then we're back to the sun. It's just been so much rain, and like it's finally sunny today, and it's like a glimpse because it's like another storm is coming in. But like I was so excited to go. I'm in like a downtown historic area right now. I was so excited to walk over to the taco shop to get my tacos for lunch today because like the sun was out, and like I I didn't have my sunglasses on. I was trying to take like a selfie. Like, hey, I'm out in the sun, but like I was like all squinting because I didn't have my sunglasses on. It was so sunny. But like it's that like I'm so happy about the sunshine because it's been so dark and gloomy. And that's a lot of what life is. And there was actually this quote, I don't know who said it, but it's um the shadow is the greatest teacher for how we come to the light. In that
Oh
I
my
feel
God.
like, yeah, I feel like that is how I you grow in wisdom. Just like
Hmm.
as life goes on, we are all going to face a series of challenging times in our life. And just like what we were talking about, the kind of contrast between like, okay, I don't like how I handled that. Next time I want to be better prepared, right? So you
Hmm.
gain that wisdom. And even, I learned, I learned each hospitalization, I did it better.
Hmm.
Like if that's a skill to have, I did it better each time. And just like on, a fat loss cycle, you're going to learn something about yourself, during, a training phase or a nutrition cycle or um a semester of school, like whatever it is, that cycle is going to end and you can look back on it and like, all right, I'm happy with the way I did this. Next time, I think I should try this way. Might be a little bit better. And it's like that shadow is revealing to us, that light.
Hmm. Every perceived failure, heavy emphasis on the air quotes here, is actually showing you or trying to tell you what you need to learn, right? Because we cannot control the stress in our lives. We cannot control them. But if we can understand, right, not perfect, understand how to handle it a little bit better, there's truly no loss of progress. And you can start to believe that, right? When you can start to understand that you don't necessarily really lose any progress, it's just this might be a darker season for you right now.
Yeah.
And that's okay, right? We're not on any timeline. We're on your timeline. And when we understand that, like you like relax. You get to relax and know that when we get through to the other side, then we can hit the gas. Then the sun's out. It's clear road ahead, and it's like now you can really dial it in. But there's nothing wrong with shifting back and understanding like you need to learn something and pay attention. And maybe it's just take care of yourself the best way you can, and that's okay, right?
Yeah.
And that's it comes down to just these small little things, and sometimes we have to go through the shit, right? Sometimes you have to go through the shit, and I'll speak to this personally. 2022 was one of the most difficult years of my entire life. I struggled so much. And I did a podcast on it where I started my own coaching business because I thought it was my goal. So every twist and turn, I fought tooth and nail to keep my goal alive. In reality, everything got really fucking hard and just kept reminding me of this is not what you wanted to do. This is not what you wanted to do. But I was not listening to the lesson. And as things got harder and harder and harder, and it all started with my damn foot injury that I'm still recovering from after I ran. I'm never running again. Um, it forced me to stop running from my problems because when Jonah's stressed, he goes to work out. Oh, you can't work out as much. You got to feel these things. You got to pay attention. And I started listening. I was like, as I was going through it, the same themes kept popping up over and over. And it was that I don't want to run a business. I want to coach people. I want to talk to people. And I don't have to have a business to do that. Right. But every turn that every time I came to that thought, I would beat myself up. I would say, no, just tough it through. Like this is what you wanted to do. Right. But then I would end up forcing myself to do things that I genuinely didn't enjoy. And it would start to build up in resentment towards the things I actually liked. Right. Take that and apply it to anything that you're trying to do. If you think you have to starve yourself and cut out carbs to lose weight, and you keep trying to do that, and you always fight yourself, and life is like, hey, stop doing that. There's so many social events coming up. Why are you keep cutting out carbs? Like, there's something going on there. It's like, pay attention. There's a possibility to do both, to have a life and be healthy at the same time. No matter what it is, it's about understanding that the contrast. And oh, this is good. This is fantastic. Um, Erin, I have a couple more questions for you because I know we can talk for hours, and I can listen to you talk for a long time. Um, what would you want just one person listening to this to walk away from, taking everything we've understood, everything we talked about in today? What do you think would be the most impactful thing someone could walk away from this conversation in their own life, in their own journey?
I feel like a lot of pressure.
I don't have to do as much of the
um,
talking when I have guests. I like it.
yeah. Um, it's your life, and you get to decide how you get to live it. There are a lot of things, a lot of circumstances are going to be out of your control, like we talked about, but ultimately it's your life and it's your choice. And, you and I have a very similar business story, and we both made a choice to stop suffering in our lack of entrepreneurial success and, you know, hatred for being a business owner, and we chose to accept a position with well, both of us the same company,
Yeah.
but to accept a different path that was maybe a little bit different than what we thought we would have ever taken, and the same thing goes for my life as a caregiver. And just I chose to be happy. I chose to be positive. I chose to do little things to take care of myself, whether that was literally just going for a walk or taking the stairs in the hospital, or having somebody bring me some food, some healthy food outside of the hospital, or whatever. That was like a little piece of control that I could have because it's my life, even though the circumstance might be beyond my control. Those individual choices are still there.
Damn right. Damn right they are. And when you become aware of those choices, it becomes much simpler to get to where you want to go. When we're
Yeah.
not aware, and we lack, and we feel like we lack control, it's usually we haven't paid enough attention. And it just takes someone to just kind of point them out for us and say, "Hey, you're all right if you don't have it all figured out. What can you
Yeah.
do?" And then we'll build. It builds from there. Erin, this has been an absolute blast. So, last question, I promise, and then I'll let you go. All right.
All right. All right.
Where can people find you?
Um, Easiest way is probably on Instagram. I'm going to Instagram real quick to double check to make sure I know my like profile name.
It surprises me how many people don't know their own handle. It's
It's
interesting.
well, because it used to be my business name, but I don't have a business anymore. So
That's
now it's
fair. Okay, that's
it's
fair.
it's Coach Erin Nichols. So Coach
Okay,
underscore Erin underscore Nichols, and I'm a girl, so Erin is Erin.
nice. I love
I'm on Facebook as well, and eventually we can do a follow up when my book comes out.
that.
Um,
Oh, I
but
wasn't gonna say nothing, but you said it. You said it. Now I get to talk
yeah,
about it. She's right. All right, Erin's writing a book about her experience. Actually, written a book about
written,
her
yeah.
experiences. And that's in the processes of coming out soon, and I am buying it. And yeah, we'll definitely be doing a follow up after that. Because that's super fucking cool. Literally, I didn't told you this when you told me, but my first ever dream as a kid was to write my own book. So I'm gonna pick your fucking brain a lot because I don't know what I'm gonna write about. So yeah, you may help me in the future.
Awesome. Well, I know like parts of your story, and so I'm sure you definitely have a memoir in you, and lessons to teach. And I mean, heck, just like podcast transcripts will be part of your book, you know?
That's fair. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
You're already coaching me. How much do I owe you? All right,
Put
Erin.
me in the acknowledgement to your book.
That's fair. I could do that. I could do that. Awesome. All right, Erin. Thank you so much for your time. This was an absolute blast, and everything that is Erin will be in the show notes. And then we'll see you again soon.
Great, Jonah. Thank you.